The Buddhism of my experience finds suffering and grace, hurt and joy, as well as my ethical choices, are all informed by a deep knowing discovered through my disciplines in life that every blessed thing is united, in a very real sense, one, or using a traditional Buddhist metaphor, empty. This spaciousness, this boundlessness is our true home. And for me, this discovery as a personal truth, a deep knowing, or again in the language of this tradition, this great not knowing, is the point of all religion, and what makes it worth putting up with a fair amount of nonsense and bother. While not a Buddhist text, the Chinese classic, the Tao Te Ching, sings of this home as at first nameless, after all ultimately words, all words fail, hence not knowing, and then named, after all at some point we must speak. Our words and actions are intimate and of great consequence. The nameless, the Tao Te Ching tells us, is the beginning of heaven and earth. The name is the mother of the 10,000 things. The nameless, the empty, the great void, the way, if you wish, God, if you wish, love, is our source, our sustenance, and our eternal return. Whatever our preferred placeholder for this experience, it is our family name. And this is equally important. It is found here in this world, in this body, by you and by me. This is my heart's knowing. These twin truths of unity and separation birthing as love in this world informs everything that I do and am. And as you may have noticed, my other foot is placed joyfully within Unitarian Universalism, sometimes called liberal religion, embracing the way of the rational heart. And here we find the liberal of my liberal Buddhism. I first came to Unitarian Universalism because I felt a lack in Zen as I encountered it in the 60s and 70s and 80s. As I said, all religions are false. Each has its limitations. None offers the truth with that big capital T. And while Buddhism may be a bit less false than most, it too has limitations. Again, I won't bore you with details here. A little research will show you a fair amount in its teachings you can find internally contradictory, silly, or wrong-headed. The thing that mostly concerned me, however, was not doctrinal. The issue of whether there is rebirth in the sense of our actions directly resulting in the birth of a human being who in some sense may be said to be me, or if each breath presents a new life and it is all resolved right here, right now, leads to the same disciplines. The issue that led me into the Unitarian Universalist Church was that there just wasn't much attention given to community in contemporary Western Zen. Oh, a tip of the hat here and there. But if a Western Buddhist wanted a spiritual home for their kids, pretty much everyone I knew ended up in a UU church. If someone wanted a spiritual community as something more than a place to do the discipline, sort of like going to a spiritual gym, and then home, pretty much the only place where I could go that didn't contradict the parts of Zen I found useful and true turned out to be the local UU church. So bottom line, I wanted a full spiritual community, and there was precious little of that at the local Zen center. Instead, I found it at the UU church. But I also got something more. In fact, I think much more. I vividly remember my first visit to a UU church, hoping for so much, expecting a lot, and falling asleep during the sermon. But as an old Zen hand, I know about falling asleep during spiritual practices. And I returned and returned. And I found something very interesting, something healthful, wheat among the chaff. Unitarian Universalism has two principal currents and two methodologies that exist sometimes smoothly, sometimes not so smoothly, which are derived ultimately from the two traditions that formed our association. The first is Unitarianism, which has historically been concerned with reason and ethics. The slogan for this current has been salvation by character. The second is Universalism, which has been concerned with healing and for which the slogan has been God is love, or love over creed. Love. The same love, it seems, as I found in my Zen practice, although in Zen this was often expressed as compassion. Love, compassion, the same or different. Maybe we can unpack that later. Once I understood these twin currents, salvation by character and love over creed, I felt I'd found the completion of my spiritual quest. Not the completion of the practice, of the doing, but I had found all the parts I needed for a whole lifetime, for my spiritual maturation, and for how I could respond to this world, to what is. Of course, there's still that all religions are false thing. The Buddha warned how we need to take up our practice with diligence, and while looking for the wise counsel, to never put another head on top of our own. Unitarian Universalism in practice is pretty good at the spiritual community thing. We know how to organize ourselves, to provide a nurturing shelter for our children, to engage each other, and to reach out into the world. Then I had my own thing here. This year in our congregation, we're really focused on marriage equality in Rhode Island, which may become law there. And we have been enormously involved in that. Not so much with the reflection part, however, with holding our hearts to account. When I arrived into Unitarian Universalism, I pretty much had to bring my own spiritual practice. As most of us moved away from Christianity, most also forgot how to pray, the classic spiritual discipline of Western religions. Things are getting better. Chalice circles or small group ministry, I think, are very important, an amazing homegrown spiritual discipline. Meditation, usually Buddhist, has become common in our UU churches. But that discipline part is still pretty fragile. We need to be careful to cultivate the opportunities for deep reflection for ourselves and for each other. I hope our time together over these next couple of days will hold up some of what this might look like. What practice is, in all its different forms, is reaching out with an open heart. All we need do is stretch our hand out. It will be taken up. Call it God, call it Lord, call it the Great Boundless, call it the Way. It has many names, but it will respond. Let us remember the whole of our way. Open heart, critical mind, and a hand reaching out. This is love. This is compassion. This is the healing of our individual hearts. This is the healing of this world. And this is my confession. This is my faith. I hope it brings you a word of hope. I hope it encourages you to trust your head and to know that doesn't mean shutting down your heart. And here are the slogans of my heart. Sit down, shut up, pay attention, salvation by character, and love over creed. Always love over creed. Our way, however we call it, is ultimately about love. It is about reaching out our hands and our hearts. Do it, and you'll find a hand taking yours. Call it Jesus. Call it Guan Yin. Love doesn't care. Love just is. This is my faith.